Are you a budding DM looking to get into Dungeons and Dragons online? You've looked at Fantasy Grounds, but you've heard it's too complex. It's just doesn't allow you to add your own custom content. You've heard all these rumors. In this episode, we're going to put these to bed. We're going to create a brand new monster. We're going to have added a brand new icon for it, and we're going to have it ready to go here in just a few minutes and show you how quickly and easily things can be done. This is your host, ID Jester. Welcome back to Fantasy Grounds. In this episode, we're going to create a brand new monster, and we are going to simply teach you guys how to import your own images into Fantasy Ground quickly and easily so you can use those new monsters. So, a couple changes. What I've done here is if we actually go in the library here, you can see that the only thing I've got loaded right now is the basic Dungeons and Dragons SDR for the monsters, for the players, and for the Dungeon Master there. So you can see, I believe these are all the free options that come with the demo version. I don't have any of my core modules loaded, nothing specific that I had purchased. This is just all the free stuff that comes with Dungeons and Dragons for Fantasy Grounds. So if we actually go into, say, an NPC, we've got all kinds of different options here for different monsters. Here's a giant spider, blah, 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 and all the information about that. So we're going to create a brand new monster. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust what we had talked about before. I'm going to right click, unlock position. I am simply going to drag this out of the way, and I'm going to create it to a size that's manageable for me because this is my desktop. I'm going to lock it back into position now. It's not going anywhere, and it doesn't take up too much space. It gives the Dungeon Master more room to maneuver and manipulate things. So in this episode, we're going to show you guys how to create something new inside your Fantasy Grounds. If you're interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons, or you're new to the system, or you're new to Fantasy Grounds, and you're like, oh wow, I could buy modules, but I like creating my own stuff and everything. Well, we're gonna show you how to add a brand new creature in right now. So if we go to NPCs here, what should we do? Let's take a Knoll here. So of course, all the Knoll stats and everything come inside of Fantasy Grounds. Have all their information, etc., etc. So maybe I want my new monster to be based upon a Knoll, but maybe in your world, Knolls are really tough monsters. Maybe they have class levels, and maybe they have a strength of 18 or whatever you envision for your world for your monsters. So here's what I can tell you is you don't really want to change any of the default information that comes with the game. When you're creating something new, you don't really want to change what's there. A better option for you is to take what's there and copy it and then manipulate that. So you always have the original, and then you have a backup copy, which is your version, if that makes sense. So we don't want to really get into Knolls and make changes to them in the core information in the core module. What we want to do is just take that information and we want to manipulate it, but we want to copy it and then manipulate it into a different thing. So I'm going to make my own Knoll how I want to for my world. So simply and easily, all I have to do is take the Knoll, right? And you see I have it in my mouse. I can drag it around the screen. I can do whatever as long as I hold my left mouse button down. And all I'm going to do is take it and I'm just going to drag it anywhere. I'm going to drop it. What? What are you talking about? What did you just do? I don't understand. Well, let me show you. Let's look up Knolls. Oh, Knolls. All right. So you can see we actually have two copies of Knolls right now. We have a copy that came from the source SDR Dungeons and Dragons, okay, which is this copy here. And then we've got our copy, which is based upon nothing. It's based upon our own information. So now we can get in and manipulate Knolls however we want. We can click on them and we can say, all right, we're going to change it to our satisfaction. Maybe I don't even want to call it a Knoll. All right. If you want to manipulate something, all you have to do is, the first thing you have to do is come over to the lock button and you need to make sure it's unlocked. Okay? Unlock it, and now I can change anything about it that I wish to change. I want them to have, say, 18 strength. Maybe their wisdom is, say, 12 instead. We want to give them another attack, or maybe we don't like spears. Well, do we want them to have spears? No, I don't think we want them to have spears. Can we just highlight this, please, and just get rid of this? Can we do that? That would be super good. All right, so we're just going to take all this information. Oop. Yep. There we go. All right, so boom. All right, so we've gotten rid of them. Maybe in our world, our creation, gnolls, they don't have weapons. Maybe they just bite. So I can come in here and I can change this damage, right? I can change their damage. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to say, you know what? Instead of 1d4 plus 2, oop, I did not mean to do that, but thank you. I want to not create an item. Thank you. I wanted to change this. Oh, it's going to make me actually. All right, here we go. You just have to kind of manipulate it a little bit. But in our world, gnolls do 1d8 plus 4. 1d8 plus 4. Because remember, they now have an 18 strength as opposed to a 14 strength, which what they had originally. So much more damage, but they do it with bites. Makes them much more, in their face monsters. More like, more like werewolves as opposed to like orcs, that have weapons and stuff like that. In fact, we're going to call this a were-gnoll. That's what we're going to call it. Just like that. When I'm done manipulating it, all I have to do is hit the lock key again. And it's now, I can't click, I can't change anything or whatever. So I can hold everything down. Maybe they're they're probably worth a little bit more XP than 100 because ours are a little bit tougher. So we're going to go in there and we're going to give them 125 XP or maybe 150, whatever you decide on. So you can go in and manipulate it. I'm just giving an example, right? Just giving an example. And now we're going to lock it up. So there we go. We've made our own creature. How long did that take? Like 3-4 minutes. And obviously you can go in and create one from scratch, which doesn't have any of the stats. But obviously it's a little bit easier if you're using a creature as your base. We used a gnoll as our base creature. So it's easier for us to manipulate. If you want to create something from scratch, that's very easy as well. Just as easy, but you're going to have to fill in all the information, their armor class and their hit points and all that, which will take a little bit too much time. So we now have a gnoll. We have a wonderful picture. If we have an image here, I don't know if we actually have any images. Do we actually have any images that come with this? We don't actually have any images. We're gonna look at that in another episode. Right now, what I'm going to do is just put this on pause, and I am going to create an image of a map. So I'll be right back. All right, and just like that, through the magic of the internet, we've got a couple of new images. We're going to learn about images in the next episode. Manipulating images and manipulating maps, ultra important. So you can see we actually got a couple in here. I've uploaded. I actually was going to use this image right here. But you can see that this is a very small image, and when I try to zoom in on it, it doesn't look very good. So what do I do with that? Well, simply right-click on it. It brings up radio menu, delete item, delete, gone, just like that. So you can add and subtract things to your fantasy grounds quickly and easily. All right, so now we've got an image, right? So on this image, maybe there is a couple of our brand new gnolls. We're going to go ahead and bring this up. Oh, look at that. That's pretty nice. I did that, in just a few seconds. Fantasy Grounds is super cool to use. So we'll talk about map manipulation and all that stuff. So we're just going to create us an encounter. And we're just going to call this we're going to call this encounter where, oops, null encounter. That's fine. And we're going to take our where nulls and we're going to place them in here. We'll just throw in, say, 3 of them. That's fine. There they are. They're ready to go. We could even manipulate them and put them on the mini map. And we can lock this now. So we are pretty much ready to go with this encounter. We click this button to add them into the combat tracker. We'll talk about that in another episode, manipulating the combat encounter. But that's not what we're doing in this episode. We're creating a random monster. But the reason I did all this extra stuff, okay, creating the map and all this, is because I wanted to show you when I place down null, what do I get? I get a G. Null. No. What? What is that nonsense? Null? G is a null. No, I don't like that at all. We need a picture of a null for our creatures, right? So let's do that. I'm going to show you how quickly and easily this is as well. You will need another little bit of software. I'm going to show you that. All right, so let's restore our window here so we can just create it, kind of keep Fantasy Grounds on the side. I would highly recommend you go find this tool online. It's called Token Tool. Token Tool, one word, I think. Just go to Google and type in Token Tool or D&D Token Tool or whatever. Download it for yourself. This will make your life as a dungeon master so easy to make tokens. Duh, right? So I'm just going to keep it over here on the side and then we're going to load it up, right? Go ahead, start her up. There we go. And you can see it starts up. It looks like this. This is your token tool. Let's go find an image of a null. All right. So let me bring over our web browser so you guys can see this. All right. So I just went into my web browser and just typed in Dungeons and Dragons null, right? And we got all kinds of super cool images of nulls. Look at that. I mean, you just find one you like. I kind of like that one. That's the demon prince god, Yolgoth, or I'm sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing his name or whatever. Yeah, that was pretty nice as well. In fact, we can do this for multiple or whatever, but I kind of like this because this kind of looks more like a were null than some of the others. So what you want to do here is you want to manipulate the background, or I'm sorry, not the background, the outer ring of your images, right? So what I have set up for myself is about, what is that, 6-1 down is just like a circular band. I use that for all the player characters, right? And then you want to find one for the monsters. You can use squares, you can use circles. There's all kinds of different options in Token Tool for you. And I think you can even upload your own, I think. Don't quote me on that. But I like this little black and red one. It just kind of shows her an enemy, right? And then this is how simple and easy it is. Normally I use on both screens, but I want to show you what I'm doing on one screen so you see exactly what I'm doing. So you just go to Tool and you go to Screen Capture, right? And you grab here in the middle and you drag the box around until you find a nice place for your null, and you're going to capture that screen. Now you can manipulate the size of it exactly, but that's just a big waste of time, right? That's just a big waste of time. Let me show you why. We're going to go ahead and screen capture again, right? If I just do this like this, and I hit enter, boom, there's my image. But that looks like hell. It's not inside your little circle. That's what these little edge corrections come down. This is your big zoom, and this is your little zoom. So all I do is click this a couple times and zoom it down, and I get it to about the size I want it, and then I just use the fine tuner, and it does like little steps, right? Little steps. Okay, so how much of the image do I want to include for my players? Do I want just the head of the monster? I can like zoom in on just like the head, which is a lot of tokens just use the head. I like showing a little bit more of the actual monster so they know if it's got armor, if it's got weapons, whatever. So in this case, I don't need the weapon because our gnolls, remember our gnolls? They bite hard, right? So this one might not be the best option because it's not white up here and I have to kind of force it up to the top. You know, I don't want this like gray band up there at the top, so I want to keep it all white. So, I mean, we can look at a different null here. Let's see here. Is this guy? Let's see what else we have. Now, that looks pretty good, and it gives me, yeah, there we go. So that's the option. That's the one I want to use. So again, tool, screen capture. I just want to basically keep the image inside the square, hit enter, boom. And then of course zoom in, keep zooming a little bit farther. Okay, and there we go. We got a nice looking icon there. Look at that, right? Beautiful. All right, then we just go File, Save Token, and you want to find whatever you would save your, if you have it in My Documents or wherever you save your files. For me, I just have a token folder that I save all my tokens in. I'm going to name it Where Null, right? And I hit Save. Simple as that. So I've got the token saved into my folder. In fact, if we actually bring up that folder, which I will do for you guys just to show you, tokens, here's, oh, I'll drag this over here. Here's all the tokens that I've created so far. You notice our where null is actually, it's like, looks like a folder as opposed to an icon. And you're like, what? I can't do anything with this. That's because Token Tool still has that image locked in it. It still has that image locked in it. So if I just go to screen capture something else and hit enter, it no longer keeps our token locked in there. So it's a good way if you're creating a bunch of tokens, you want to just keep using it, or you can just close out a token tool, whatever's easier for you. Now we see our where null token. So now all I'm going to do is go back into Fantasy Grounds, right? And I'm going to go back in and maximize it so we can all see it, right? I don't like the G's. Yeah, right. Where am I going to go? I'm going to go down here and go to my tokens. And you can see I've got a bunch of my personal ones that I've created loaded in. And all I'm going to do now is go into the GM folder or the shared folder if you want to share it with your players, or in the module folder or in the store folder or wherever, however you want to manipulate this. These loose tokens are basically inside of the GM folder, and that's what I do for now. And maybe when I get a whole bunch, then I'll start making subfolders and all that for like NPCs and etc. But I'm just going to go into the GM folder and it's going to bring up, there's my GM folder with all my tokens in it. All the tokens you see here are going to be ones that I created and added to the game. You can see here's one with a square border. It depends on what you want to do with your tokens. Here's one that's like an object. We're going to look at objects here in just a second because we're going to create an object an object token. And so you notice we don't see our where null. The reason we don't see our where null is because where null is, oops, it's in a different folder, right? It's in our tokens folder right here. We need to put it into our, wherever our DM folder is located. For me, it's different. I specifically changed the directory Fantasy Grounds installed into. So don't just assume that yours is going to be in the same location. It's not. I've changed my option. Says I wanted Fantasy Grounds in a specific spot on my computer. So what you want to do is just find where you saved your token and open the DM folder, right? So we open the DM folder by just going to tokens, and then we just click on DM, and it opens the DM token folder. And then I find the folder that has my all the tokens that I save. Where did this is tokens right there? Okay, that's down here. That's why I couldn't find it. And now all we have to do is simply drag it and save it into the DM folder. So I'm just going to take this, right click, drag it in there, and hit copy. And it'll be in there. There it is, where null, right? So now I just close out of my windows. You will notice it doesn't sometimes it doesn't pop in here right away. What you need to do is just close out of it and bring up your tokens again, and you should see your where null token. So simply and easily, that's how fast we do it. So you notice we got our where null encounter here ready to go, but we got these silly little G's or whatever. So I'm just gonna right click and let's manipulate this. I'm actually going to add those back in there, and then I'm gonna delete, delete, and delete. So just cleared that stuff out of there, because what you want to do is you actually want to save your image on your original null. So where's our original null? Remember NPC, and we have our null, and then we have our where null. So we're going to bring up our where null. We are going to unlock it, and now I'm going to go to tokens, and I'm going to drag that right over where the G is. And now, where null? Look at that. Where null? Where null? And now I'm actually going to place these monsters on the map. You don't necessarily have to place them on the map. I like doing that, but and it'll actually show you with check marks if they're on the map. And there we go. So now if I zoom in, okay, I've got a nice picture. The players get more immersed in the story because they now see our where null tokens instead of a big G there. So literally only a few seconds to do that. Maybe I decide, and I'm going to show you this quickly, and I'm not going to talk about what I'm doing. I'm going to explain it, but I'm going to try and show you how quick it is. And what if I decide, oh, I don't like these icons? All right, so what am I going to do? Oh, what am I going to do, right? So I'm just going to go back into Google. I'm going to type in D&D null, and I do a search, and I go, this one, nope, don't like that one. This one right here. All right, let's get our token tool up and running. Boom, boom, boom. And here it is. We're going to screen capture. We're going to capture that region. Now I'm just going to manipulate it up, up, up. Let's change that. I want to change that. There we go. And I'm just dragging the image around until it gets to about right what I want to see. That one looks pretty good, just like that, right? And I go File, Save Token, and I find my folder I'm keeping all my tokens in, right? And I'm just going to save it into tokens, and I'm going to call this where null. I will call it where null 2. That's fine. Save, right? And now I'm done with token tool because that's all I needed to do. I close it out. Boom, it's gone. I can just minimize this out of the way. I go back to my where null, and I go, you know what? I need another copy of this, so I just drag it. Right, so now I've got 2 copies of where null. I've got this one here, and I've got this one here. This one here, of course, uses our other image, which we're going to change out. And before I do that, let's go ahead and click on the DM folder. There we go. Click on our token. Find our token folder. Tokens. There we go. Here's where null 2. We just drag. Let's right click and drag it up there. Copy. Boom, boom. Right. And now tokens. Here's where null number 2. So I've got 2 copies of where null now, and like one of them is going to have. Let's unlock this. We're going to call this where null leader. Maybe one of them is a leader, and instead he's going to have a 16 armor class, and instead of 22 hit points, he's going to have 25 hit points. All right, but he's going to have a different image. So now we do this like that, just like that. All right, and we go to our encounter. There's our where null encounter. Let's go ahead and get rid of one of these nulls, and simply what we want to do is actually drag over the where null leader. Lock it. There we go. Yeah, that's unlocked. It should be able to go over there. Got to drag the not the portrait. You don't want to drag the portrait over there. That doesn't do anything. You want to actually drag the information over there. And now we just simply drag our where null leader over there. Now we got two where nulls and we got a where null leader, and we created all this stuff in less than 25 minutes because I've been talking for about 25 minutes. And we got an encounter all ready to go. We've got these monsters we can use. We can go and manipulate them as many times as we want to. So same thing with player characters. I can do the same thing. I can upload if one of my players goes, can you find an image, or maybe they send you an image and say, oh, I really like this half elf ranger that I found online. But here's the kicker of all this. Don't be using other players' art unless you give them credit, or you're using other um, licensed artwork, unless you get permission from the author or the creator first. I'm not into stealing other people's artwork for your own stuff. That's not what this is all about. It's about finding something that's going to help you, but in the meantime, make sure you're not doing it just to steal somebody else's image out there, okay? Make sure you take the time to maybe find out who created the artwork. Especially, I mean, if you're going to use little monster tokens, it's one thing, but if you're going to use somebody's dungeon map or image of maybe they drew like a scene of a town and some mountains or whatever, try and find out who created it. Let them know and ask them for permission to use it. Tell them, you're just running a online game. If you're not posting this stuff online, if you're not running it like a live streaming it or whatever, you know, it's different. But if you're going to be live streaming online, try not to use people's artwork without their permission. Okay, and make sure you give credit where credit is due. And most artists, if you're just running a D&D adventure, they're not going to really like, oh, well, you're going to have to pay me for that, $50 because, okay, I'll find something else. Thanks anyways. But anyways, so there's my spiel on that. So we've created a null encounter, um, and we're ready to go. And of course, I just closed out of the encounter, right? There's our where nulls. I could just quickly bring them back and drop them back in or whatever I wanted to do. And I can add them to the combat tracker. I have to probably do it through the encounter, right? Yes, probably. There we go. So there they are, all ready to go inside of, actually, because they were already there, right? Yes, yes. So let's delete the ones that we added afterwards. Delete this token, and delete this token because it kept the three that we originally did. There we do. We added them in. They're not visible yet. That's what this little button is down here. Or I could just come up here and say, all right, everyone's visible. Or you wait until your players open this door and then they become visible. However you want to run your game. We'll talk about that maybe in another episode. This episode is just about manipulating Fantasy Grounds so that you can get your custom stuff into the game as we pretty much put aside the myth of it's too hard to manipulate, it takes too long, it's not very intuitive, et cetera, et cetera. If I'm going to create like a null monster, here's the way I would do it. If I'm going to create some nulls, right? I'm going to use my token tools. I'm going to find about 5 or 6 images of nulls, right? I'm going to save all those images in there all at the same time. So I'm not going back and forth and doing it one at a time. I'm just going to go in and do that 5 or 6. And then maybe they're like run by an evil magic user. And so I'm going to try and find some, go into Google and type in Dungeons and Dragons, put D&D, and then space magic users or evil magic users. I'm going to find a couple images of those. I'm going to make some tokens of those as well, because you can actually just create these tokens. You don't need to associate them with anything. As we found out, if you watched our live stream the other day, we actually had an adventure with a cart. So I made just a cart. I don't need to have a character sheet to create an image. Okay, that's something, two different things. You have images and then you have your data for the character in here. If you just need an image, let's make an image. And we're going to do this, and I know we're running out of time because I wanted to keep this reasonable. right? So let's make an image of a barrel, B-A-R-R-E-L, right? Barrel. All right, so I want something from top down because normally images are going to be top down, right? So here's like a barrel in a crate. Um, yeah, let's see how big it is. That looks like a barrel. That looks pretty good, right? So let's get up token tool. And what I'm going to do with token tool this time is down towards the bottom is a square, kind of clearish outline one. It's, I think they call it transparency or something. Anyways, that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to screen capture. Again, I might not need it quite so big. I'm just going to kind of center my thing, hit enter, and then I'm going to manipulate it the best I can, fine tune it a little bit, fine tune until it's about where I need it to go. Maybe, there we go. That's, I think I'll make it a little bit bigger. There we go. So there we go. Looks like a barrel. I want to save the token. Again, same thing is PC, data, tokens, and I'm going to call it barrel, B-A-R-E-L. I'm going to save that, and I'm done with token tools, so I can close that. I can minimize this out of the way. Go to my tokens, go to GM, GM, and I should have left over in the other window, but I'm not smart enough to do that, so I'm going to have to spend a second to go back to my tokens, and right click and drag this in there, and I'm going to copy it in there. I like to keep two folders because if something ever happens to my Fantasy Grounds and I need to uninstall it, or I need to delete folders or all that, I can always go back to my original folder and copy everything back in. So you could just save all this stuff right into Fantasy Grounds, but if your Fantasy Grounds becomes corrupt, you need to uninstall it, you don't save all your data or whatever, you're going to lose everything. So for me, it's easier just to create a folder that says tokens, and then copy all that inside of Fantasy Grounds. So if Fantasy Grounds blows up, I still have all my original information. And you see I've done that pretty much throughout this whole episode. I don't use the core information inside of Fantasy Grounds. We make a copy of it and manipulate this. I'm an IT guy. I deal with people's problems all day long. One of the problems they have is I've lost all my stuff and I don't know what happened to it. It's gone and it's thousands of hours of work and what am I going to do? Don't let that happen to you. All right. So I've copied that into my uh, there it is, barrel, right? So now I'm setting up, I got my maps, I'm ready to go, and maybe for whatever reason, I want to put a barrel down, a couple barrels down these hallways. I can just use tokens to put those images right on top of our maps, right? There they are. So I've got two barrels. Now I've got barrels anytime I want. I can add a barrel into the game. I can actually add carts into the game as much as I want. So yeah, you just because you want an image, right, doesn't mean you need to have it part of a character sheet or monster or anything like that. You can just create tokens to make tokens of whatever you want. And you don't have to associate them. You don't necessarily, especially inanimate objects. If I want to put a sword on the ground, a sword's laying there on the ground, the players are going to run over and pick up. I've created a magical item that I'm going to add to the character that picks up the sword. I can, I can spend the time and I can just go in and I can draw a, okay, you see it laying on the ground, a sword, it's glowing, its handle is made of gold, et cetera, et cetera. I can draw that, but unfortunately, you're using a little pen and all that. What would be better, more super cool, is to get an image of a sword, import that in as a token, place that token on the ground, then you're good to go, right? And of course, there's other things you can manipulate with images, which, hopefully, like if you had just created, if you have a map, that has like just dungeon floor on it, and then you took your image of the sword, put it on top, and then took a screenshot of that, and you overlaid it on your map, your dungeon floor map, it would look super cool instead of having a white border or whatever. So that's extra work for you, but it's how much time and effort you want to put into it to make it look good. I think everything we created, the barrels look awesome. I don't have any problems with that. It helps my players know, oh, hey, look, there we got some barrels coming up. They know now that not all tokens are monsters or enemies. They know that tokens are just something that's on the map, whether it's a barrel, a cart, a monster, or an NPC, or a player character. They can all be tokens for you guys. So I know we ran over a few minutes. I want to thank everyone for joining me, but I wanted to show you guys, break the myth that Fantasy Grounds is hard to manipulate things in the game. Break the myth that it takes too long to create your own custom content, to add things into Fantasy Grounds. We did a lot in like 30 minutes of time. We were able to do that. And just think, if I wasn't recording and talking with you guys, how fast I can manipulate and just create things into Fantasy Grounds really easily. Thanks for watching. If you have any thoughts, comments, suggestions, leave them in the chat below. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.